Mr. Jim Hubbard, who is running for the County Commission. I am Trenton Adams. Welcome to the Cherokee County Republican Party candidate interviews.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time out of your campaign to participate in this interview process. We've extended this invitation to all candidates in this race and sourced questions from the CCRP membership. We have found that it has been an asset for voters in making their decision. The video will appear on the Cherokee County GOP website and will be shared on social media. The interview will be shown unedited in its entirety. For the interview, we will ask you a number of questions but can offer no prompting. There are no right or wrong answers, just your answers. We ask each candidate the same questions. If this is all right with you, I'll have everyone introduce themselves and then I'll ask Tim to begin asking the questions.
That's fine. My name is Jim Hubbard. I'm running for the District 2 Commissioner seat.
I'm Tim Adderholt.
Larry Mrozinski.
Larry.
Harry Abrams.
Harry. Good to see you all again.
What is the current state of the county?
The county's in pretty good shape overall. The business aspects, the Office of Economic Development is doing a good job. I know Chairman Ahrens keeps a list of unique selling points that list out the strengths of Cherokee County. But with the new airport building and the expansion of the runway, the office parks, the 7592 office park, the opportunity zones down around 92 and up 575 toward the airport, make us open for business as far as inviting business. And that's got to be one of our solutions. We've got to invite the businesses, get them in here, and I think things are really coming together to allow us to do that. Financially, I haven't been studying the budget, but knowing what I know about it, I'm sure that we're living within our budget, and the collections this late in the year coming in well. So I feel like the county is in good physical and emotional state.
Do you know the mission statement for the Cherokee County Board of Commissioners?
I do not. I have read it many times, and I should have gone to that. I was writing a mission statement for something the other day, and I should have gone and looked at that, but I do not remember it.
What is your plan to create jobs in Cherokee County?
Okay, the Office of Economic Development has got some real good folks on it. Our, I guess she's the president, Misty Martin, does a super job of supervising the staff, and we've got some board members that are excellent businessmen, have been into large business and know how business is done. So we've got to work with them. As I mentioned, we've got the 7592 office park going. We've got some buildings going up towards the airport in that industrial area there. Chairman Ahrens is excellent at visiting with groups and visiting with people in business that want to stop in and see how we're doing. So I think that's all coming together, and the only thing I'm aware of that a short time ago was not started would be an incubator building where a business could come in and we'd have a space for them to start tomorrow, start getting their organization together, start building their new facility, but have people with telephones and computers doing work within just a few days. And I think that's an excellent way to get them in here and get them started. And then hopefully they can bring some of these mid-career and late-career jobs in, and we'll quit having 70% of our people leaving the county every morning.
You've touched on this already, but what can further be done by the Cherokee County Commission to spur economic development?
Well, like I say, the incubator offices, used to in the 70s and 80s, we had some executive suites where somebody could rent 1, 2, or 3 offices, have a secretary out front, very similar to what's going on at the airport now. We've got a person at the airport that can coordinate meetings when people come in, and I think that's wonderful. They come into that new terminal building. They've got all the services they need right there. The young lady has got all the phone numbers, can call in help, lunch, whatever they need. And then when they fly out, they fly over those horse farms up towards Ball Ground and thinking, you know, gee, my wife's been wanting to have a horse. Why don't I buy a little farm here in Ball Ground? And while I'm at it, why don't I build my big building and bring all my people down? So I think that's a wonderful asset, and it's not an overnight process. It's a process that you have to work on day by day to make sure that Cherokee County, in every aspect, is inviting for people to come in, whether it's recreation for their kids, education, shopping for the wives, the whole bit. And I think Cherokee is well on its way to having that, but it can always be improved.
What is the commission's role in information infrastructure such as internet and communications?
Well, the commission is at the center of the government, and it radiates out from there in many directions. I can remember talking to some folks about broadband. In the past, we've had a lack of true broadband. We've got what some carriers would call that, but most people don't consider 5 megabytes as broadband. I mean, it works, but, and most people don't trust the over-the-air broadband. For Wi-Fi, it's fine, but for secure corporate operations, they don't consider that as a good alternative. So I had been talking to some people, and the airport industrial area was very lacking, and since my last conversation about that, I understand that one of the local carriers has come in there with some fiber, and so that area is being beefed up. And in this day and age, that's what we've got to have, and the commission just needs to keep their finger on it, and where there's a lacking, act on it, invite somebody in, encourage somebody to come in, whatever it takes.
Next one, sir, is do you support a T-Splost initiative?
I like the concept, but in the actual implementation, I'm very concerned about Cherokee County combining with other counties, not at random, but in a large area. We know that the further you get towards the center of town, the more requirements there are and the more expensive it gets. And I think Cherokee County's got enough problems of our own without having to try to support more densely populated areas. So unless the T-Splost changes in its concept, I'd love to partner a little bit with Bartow County and work on Highway 20. I'd love to partner with Forsyth County and work on Highway 20. I'd love to partner with Fulton County and work on Highway 140. But as far as a mass group together, like I say, unless there's some major changes to it, I could not support it.
What items in the county budget need the most scrutiny?
There's a lot of different opinions on that. I just saw a study on the county attorney expenses, and a lot of people are complaining about that. But when you look at the 10-county metro area, Cherokee has the second lowest per capita attorney's cost, and the attorneys we've got are not just doing things for us, they are saving us from lawsuits and from other expenses. So to me, that's doing well. As far as the other stuff, public safety, I'm all in favor of it. But those guys are doing a great job. We've just gotten in a new financial director. I've met her, but I haven't had a chance to really talk to her. But with Mr. Cooper at the helm and a good, strong financial officer, I think Cherokee County is probably in better shape than anybody around us as far as knowing what's going down and keeping up with it and controlling it. So we've got a good budget, a well thought out budget, and it's being executed. So except for some little details that will come up from time to time, I think we're in good shape.
Would you consider having in-house legal counsel in an attempt to control legal expenses?
I've been there. We've had an in-house attorney, and a lot of people don't mention it. When we had the in-house attorney, we had an outside firm on contract. And anything that pointed toward the courtroom was shuffled off to them. It was like an insurance policy. We paid a deductible, and they took care of the case. And then we paid the fines or judgment if it came against us. The firm we've got now, contrary to what a lot of people say, about half of the firm does live in Cherokee County, including one of the partners. And they have experts in many, many areas of government operations. I got into a series of meetings with a subdivision where the widow of the developer was wanting to sell the green space, and they sent one of the attorneys I'd never met before, met him that morning, met with the folks, and he just knew right off the bat, this is what we've got to do, this is what the law says, and we went right into it, got it stopped, made the people in the subdivision happy, and he did not have to go back to his office and research all of that. That's what he does with the firm. So that was one of his specialties. So I am really quite satisfied with what Gerard and Davis is doing for Cherokee County, and I feel like they are saving us a lot of money. And I've got the chart here, but I think it's costing us $2.82 a year per person to have that firm, and they're doing all of our court work, all this stuff. And so we're not having to take any of it outside of that firm. And no telling what they're saving us by giving us the good advice in the meeting before we make the decision on how to word this or how to implement this so that it doesn't end up in a lawsuit and we don't end up paying them or somebody else to go to court over it.
Are you familiar with Cherokee County's organizational chart? Which departments reporting to the Board of Commissioners are you best prepared to work with?
I don't remember from the organizational chart, very few of them report direct to the commissioners. Most of them work through the county manager. Mr. Cooper is doing us an excellent job. I don't agree with him 100% of the time, but the few times I've disagreed with him, it could go either way, so I've been happy with his ultimate decision. And he keeps a tight rein on all the different departments. I corresponded with one of the department heads just this morning in planning and zoning. I know all the department heads, and people still come to me. I haven't been in office for 4 years, but people still come to me because I know who does what, how to get in touch with them, how to get things done, and got a good relationship with all of them. I think the only one I haven't met so far is over senior services, but I'll be looking into that. So, like I say, I don't think, very few of them report directly to the commissioners, but the commissioners are kept informed and can go straight to Mr. Cooper with suggestions, observations, and stuff. And if it's anything that has to be brought up to the commission, then Mr. Cooper will bring it up during his part of the meeting, and it can get resolved. We'll talk about it at the work session and then resolve it at the public meeting.
$426.46 is the per capita long-term debt that the county says it has control over. However, the county makes no attempt to break this down into what actually constitutes this debt. Do you believe in itemizing such figures to truly define what the individual issues are.
I can see no reason why it hasn't been done. I don't think the county has a lot of different debts. But I can see no reason why they shouldn't be broken down at least into the main bond categories. And from there, the details, you get into the real details, you got to be an accountant to figure it out. We've had an awful lot of people who have gotten information and used it to prove incorrectly that the county was at fault or something was going on. And I can see why I would be reluctant to turn that loose to just anybody, but somebody that's got some background and understands that, you know, you're working with some awfully big numbers. And that was kind of startling to me when I first took office. But now to sit and look at a $69 million budget doesn't bother me, because I look at the breakdown and it all boils down. You get down to one person that's making a salary sitting at that front desk at the Bluffs, and one of our citizens comes in and they get helped right then, and they're happy and they leave happy. So, you know, I don't see any reason to stir that up.
Are you, excuse me, are you in favor of public co-signing for private company operations?
It has worked, and it has failed. There are times when public-private cooperation works out very well. The Garland Mountain Horse Trails is a perfect example of that. Cherokee County bought the property, designated it as a park. The Cherokee Saddle Club and another saddle club, I apologize, I don't remember the name, got together, got their volunteers together with a little help from Parks and Recreation and a couple of their machines. They actually trained volunteers to operate those machines properly. And we've got some wonderful horse trails. And they got me on a horse and I rode for 20 minutes, and by Wednesday I could walk again. So, but there are times when that is good, and there are times that it has failed us. And, you know, you have to be careful. You have to analyze the benefit versus the potential problems. And you have to make sure that you've got the proper guarantees, even so far down as to personal guarantees, that it'll be done and be done correctly and be done within budget.
What is your position on term limits?
Interesting. If you talk about Washington, I think I could go with that real easily. Some people are doing some short numbers, and quite frankly, anybody that goes into the office the first year or two, they're a freshman with all the responsibilities and questions that go with being a freshman. Some of them have a tendency to get set in their ways, belong to the good old boys club, and some don't. But periodically, every 2 or 4 years, the people get the choice. And here locally, I think the choices are wide open, and the people do truly get a choice. Some of the areas, I think, when you move on up, I think the people use their office to gain an advantage and perpetuate their job there, their position. And I wish we had a way to tell them apart. Flip a coin or something to tell who are the career politicians and who are the people that are just good at what they're doing. I know we've had one person that was a commissioner for quite a long time and brought a lot of financial stability to our county commission, which is one of the reasons why we're not covered up with debt right now. We're operating well, And they created a spreadsheet in Excel that choked my computer, but they can plug in a 2% pay raise July 1st and tell you what effect that has over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And that's wonderful. And that individual got elected, brought it in, no longer serving on the board, but still, like I say, there have been some people that came and stayed for a long time and did well, and there have been some people that needed to go after one term, and term limits, I don't think is going to solve that. Because like I say, some people you can stay 10 or 15 years and do a good job, and others, we've had them resign in 2 years. Not because of anything they had done, but because they decided they were not cut out for it. Being a commissioner in Cherokee County is not a job, it's a lifestyle. When I'd go to Applebee's, they'd sit me in the back left corner so people coming in didn't have to walk by me and see me. My wife always said that was her time, and I was going to have lunch with her. But then I'd go back to my office up at the Bluffs and sit there and meet with folks. And, you know, I enjoyed doing that. Met lots of good folks, worked with lots of good folks, and I hope to be able to do it again.
Okay. This is a three-part question. What is the current state of the Ball Ground Recycling Center? One. B, what steps have been taken to prevent similar occurrences in the future? And C, what other steps would you propose?
Okay. Currently, the Cowart Company is operating the Ball Ground Recycling Facility. My understanding is they had a little trouble with the equipment, and when they revamped it and installed it correctly, it operates a lot more efficiently. I don't know about their profit and loss, but when I see the construction, the land clearing that's going on, I'm hoping that they're just getting truckloads and truckloads of debris, converting it into mulch, and selling it to everybody to put around their flowers. Second part, please, sir.
What steps have been taken to prevent similar occurrences in the future?
I don't think anybody in the state of Georgia in any kind of a position doesn't know what happened to us in the Ball Ground Recycling boondoggle, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think any of the laws have been changed, and I'm not comfortable that any of the laws need to be changed. It was all set up to be done, and the safeguards were put into place, and 2 or 3 of the safeguards simultaneously failed to operate and left us holding the bag. So there were a lot of people involved in that. I mentioned earlier personal guarantees. I doubt we could have got that, but if we had, that might could have made a small difference. But I don't know. When you're dealing with honorable people, you can get things done, but you've got to have the safeguards in place. And the state law, the way you go through it, all the organization of the Resource Recycling Development Authority was spelled out in state law. The whole procedure for planning the bonds and initiating the bonds. And then the district attorney prosecuted the whole process as though it were a criminal act in open court, and it was adjudged to be legal, properly set up, and moved forward. And if we had not had the crash of 2008, that company would still be up there grinding out mulch, dyeing it different colors, and running it down to Home Depot.
What other steps would you propose?
I don't know, with the possible exception of personal guarantees, I don't know anything in the process that is suspect to me. just some things that we were told and some things that people contracted to do didn't happen. And if I was doing anything anywhere similar to this, which I'm not and wouldn't, but we would have a county employee, Mr. Cooper or one of his designees, I know Bill Eccles is doing it right now, overseeing every construction project. And I know we could go up to his office right now and he could tell us how many bricks were delivered to the site and how many of them were returned for credit. If we had had somebody like that, we would have suspected things earlier. But instead, it was inspected by an outside firm and they let us down. Several things happened simultaneously. I'm not pointing fingers. But where we thought the guarantees were in place, they were not, and it didn't survive the downturn of 2008. If I could have foreseen that, I'd be on a beach somewhere instead of here working. So that was the big thing. If you're going to do something like that, don't do it just before a recession.
In Reed versus Town of Gilbert, the Supreme Court held that signage could not be regulated based on content. This led to a change in the signage ordinance of Cherokee County. Do you agree with how the new ordinance currently stands? Please explain.
Okay. As far as I recall, that new ordinance, and it may have come in two phases. Seems to me like there was a phase one, which was a little more restrictive, and then somebody proposed, they came together with a phase two, which essentially put the politicians out of business. It was restricted size depending on the acreage of the lot it was on. It was one size per lot. I don't remember, I'm sure there was nothing about content or color, but very, very restrictive. And, you know, I don't think that passed, and I don't know if it's up for reconsideration after this election. If it does, maybe I'll be in office and contribute to that. But I'm in favor of a certain amount of sign restriction. We had particularly, there were some areas on Bells Ferry Road when we first wrote that ordinance that was not just visual pollution, but dangerous. Flashing signs, big flashing arrows, waving little things, all this stuff to draw your attention away from your driving and into their business. And that's part of marketing. But it reaches the point where you've got to restrict that and not distract the drivers. You don't want them to look up from their phone and see something like that. You'd like for them to see the traffic when they look up. So I do support reasonable sign ordinances, sign restrictions. But the details I heard on that one made it almost impossible for our politicians, our churches, our yard sales, and things like that. And to me, that's just too restrictive. There needs to be a middle ground where we can all get along.
Are there any boards, committees, or authorities reporting to the Board of Commissioners that could be eliminated or combined?
That's something we could look at. As I think about it, I'm thinking like the Construction Review Board. It meets an average of once a year. I remember my appointment during my first 2 terms was a gentleman that had been in construction for a lot of years and both worked for other people and had his own company. So he got to see both sides of it. And they would only review they would only meet in a situation where the staff and the construction company could not resolve the problems, but it was costing us nothing. A letter saying thank you for volunteering, you've been appointed, and another letter saying, thank you for serving, I'm leaving. So that's $10 for 8 years. So that type of thing, I don't see any reason in struggling over it. We've got a fire review board, doesn't meet often, and as far as I know, they're not paid. The animal review board has done some really good things, come through for us. So I think those boards are specialized, and a lot of our employees, the higher up ones, have more of a general knowledge, and then they have individuals in their department to be the specialist. And so sometimes you just need somebody else you can go to and explain it to some people who are aware of that industry and what goes on in that industry, and to be able to make a decision. And then in general, if that doesn't work out, I think it's appealed to the Board of Commissioners. And of course, the first thing I would do would be go talk to my appointee on that board that reviewed it and say what's going on, and then we can make a judgment.
Will your personal and professional life allow you to dedicate the time required to fulfill your duties to the Board of Commissioners and ultimately the residents of your district?
Yes. I'm pretty much retired. My business has kind of gone away, partly recession, partly neglect, those 8 years I was in office, but I still got it. I still piddle with it, but I've got the time and I've got the knowledge. Somebody, I wish I could remember who, was talking about my broad knowledge. I was a telephone man in my career and a volunteer fireman. And both of those have led me into a lot of experiences that a lot of people don't have. As a telephone man, I got involved in new construction. I got involved in codes, that sort of thing. Laying out a construction schedule and knowing it ain't gonna make it. Knowing everybody wants to be last on the construction site. The painter wants everybody out before he paints it because somebody's gonna scratch it. But then again, when he paints it, he'll paint over my telephone jacks, so I have to be last. And everybody, so I've got a wide range of experience. I am a certified commissioner. I went to all the classes and got that. And I've got the time. And I'm the type of person, well, I grew up as a Boy Scout. I'm no longer a kid in a green uniform, but I still believe in the ideals of Boy Scouting. Do a good turn daily. Some days I don't get one, some days I do 2 or 3. But helping people find their way in our government gives me a great sense of satisfaction.
The board submitted through the legislators a request that was disconcerting to a number of voters. Would you be in favor of requiring such submissions to the legislators be done prior to the legislative session so that voters can have input and not during the legislative session?
As far as I recall, there were a number of suggestions. I believe we met in early December with the legislative delegation and submitted our priorities prior to the start of the legislative session. I like that idea, and I believe they were published. There's no reason they couldn't be published ahead of time except the fact that we're still discussing them, not necessarily on the way to the meeting, but a lot of discussion goes on a few days before that. Which ones, if we wanted to pick a certain number, which ones would be more of a priority. And there's no reason why those can't be published. And I'm not aware of any that rose up public outcry except for the T-Splost. The host did create a bunch of turmoil, and there was a bunch of misrepresented information presented about the host tax. the T-Splost. There was a lot of information went public, and I could have supported it either way. I didn't like it, but based on the contract, it was good to Cherokee County. I think the host tax would be great for the citizens of Cherokee County. It doesn't do anything for the commissioners and trying to make their budgets. But there's no reason this stuff couldn't be published. But I also would not want to say we couldn't send in a request after the session started, because things come up. And working with the county attorneys, a lot of times we'll start to do something, and some citizen will point out some loophole in the law that allows us to be challenged or something, and we need to get that information to them and see if it's possible to act on it right away so that the county can move forward. So, not being familiar with that particular situation, I don't really know, but I think we need the opportunity to submit when the need is there, but I also think we need to publish that and possibly even publish reasoning, some comments on it, and let the people see what we're thinking and then respond back to us.
For solutions to the traffic and other infrastructure issues, do you support the regional approach, such as the Atlanta Regional Commission, or another method of dealing with these issues?
Much prefer another method. Like I say, the T-Splost was awfully big, awfully widespread. There was a proposal to allow fractions of cents tax for specific projects. One that was proposed was Bartow and Cherokee joined together and try to widen Highway 20, and the same with Forsyth County. Maybe the three go together and create, I don't want to use that word, create another path to go from 75 to 85 and back, so that we don't have all those big trucks driving on Highway 20. I hate driving that road. I do work in Forsyth County and have to come home at quitting time up Highway 20. And there were times I'd be in Buford and notice a particular truck, and I'd still be fighting him when I turned off Macedonia to go to Hickory Flat. Too many big trucks, too many accidents, and it would take a regional approach to do that. Also, 140 into Fulton County. I've got a picture in here of the morning traffic, where traffic is just about totally stopped from the Cherokee County line to Rucker Road on 140. And Cherokee County can do everything they want to do to Highway 140 inside Cherokee County, and it's not going to get the people past that bridge and down to 400. So I could support a regional between North Fulton and Cherokee, or maybe Milton, Alpharetta. So yes, there are projects that need to be regional, but it needs to be approached very carefully and supervised very carefully.
Are you currently a member of the Cherokee County Republican Party?
Yes. I sent my dues in online and went to the mass meetings, so yes.
Thank you. We would like our Republican leaders to help us grow the party. Please briefly describe any significant efforts you have made in the past to support the Republican Party and/or Republican candidates locally, statewide, or nationally.
Okay, first thing, the mass meetings in February of the non-election years. People need to know that's when the action starts. And I tried and tried to get the word out, and that's too far away from the election. The people just were not interested. Now that the election's upon us and we're seeing all the garbage on TV and radio, everybody's interested. But we're already set. We've got our delegates set to go to the district and the state. And somebody comes to me and says, what can we do? Well, next February, let's all get together and let's elect us some leaders that can keep us posted, keep us aware at the lowest level, the precinct level. And then November of 18, we'll be more prepared to participate. I have participated in quite a number of campaigns. I guess I started that in about 2000. In 1998, I was helping organize the Hickory Flat Township group. That the township concept never did really come into play, but that's when I got involved, and I worked on the local elections in 2000, 2002, and then in 2004, that was my first election. So I was up to my neck in that one. But yeah, it's hard to get people involved far enough ahead of time to be able to do the right things. I applaud you folks for being part of it year-round. And we need to do stuff. We need to, have had people talking to me, we need to have more town hall meetings. And I think if we do have a meeting, the first question, how many of you are members of the Republican Party? How many of you know what's going on? Let's push that and get people involved. And then, who knows, maybe we can make a big difference.
Have you or has any organization or business under your control ever declared a bankruptcy, been sued, or currently facing liens or other financial issues? So please explain.
No. My only slip was the ball ground recycling as part of the county. Everybody's beat that to death. We did what the attorneys told us to do. So, you know, but personally, never involved in any. I've had some long way back employers that went bankrupt, but that was one of the reasons I left, is they were not doing business as business should be run, and I was not sad when they went bankrupt. But as far as my own personal dealings, I've never even been close.
Have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime excluding traffic offenses?
No.
And have you ever been the subject of professional discipline or cited for breach of ethics, unprofessional conduct by any disciplinary committee, court, administrative agency, or other professional group?
No professional groups, no ethics charges, other than what came about from the ball ground recycling. I was interviewed by the grand jury, interviewed by the GBI, interviewed by the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department for my participation in that. And it all came through that I was not guilty of any malfeasance, malpractice in any of that. We just got caught up in that recession. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. Is there anything else you'd like to say to those watching the interview?
Why not? I'm Jim Hubbard. I previously served for 2 terms as a county commissioner. I've had 4 years off, but people are still coming to me. I still know who does what their addresses are, how to get in touch with them, and I have been successful in helping people solve problems, and I'm ready to get back into it full time. So I'm offering myself for election, and I don't know, we've got some problems, but I think the problems are solvable. But we've got to have people dedicated to solving the problems for the people and not for the politicians. I don't like politics. I don't want to be a politician. If I get elected, I will be an elected official, and I will be a friend of the people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.